And welcome back to Houston Newsmakers, where my guest this week is Dr. Jim Ray from MD Anderson, the director of the Neurodegeneration Consortium. It's a collaboration among MD Anderson, Baylor College of Medicine, and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology as they search for a cure for Alzheimer's. I want to get to some of the questions that were emailed to me for you. This one's from Brian, and he asks, what kinds of measures can be taken to slow down the process, if there is something, leading to a full diagnosis of Alzheimer's?
Well, we do know some things that make people less likely to develop Alzheimer's. So if you're very socially active and you maintain a social network around you, if you get exercise, and if you maintain good heart health. So anything that's good for the heart tends to be also good for the brain. So keep your cholesterol, your blood pressure under control, make sure your blood sugar is under control. People who do all these things are less likely to develop dementia as they age. I
see a lot of advertisements for those kinds of things that stimulate the brain. Lumosity or one of those kinds of things. I have that. And so I'm wondering, am I wasting my time doing that? From what you said, it can help. Yeah, those kinds of things.
Absolutely. So while there's no proof of yet that any one of these specific things is the right one to take, in general, maintaining your mind, reading books, doing crossword puzzles, lumosity, whatever is going to keep you mentally stimulated and engaged. I think when people, often they lose a spouse or something happens to them later in life and they withdraw a little bit from their friends and their family, I think that's often the case where dementia starts to show up. So really need to keep active, keep physically fit, and keep socially tied to your friends and family.
Rick was asking a question, I think we touched upon this earlier, about hereditary links, about the value of DNA tests. Is there anything at all within any of those tests that have to do with DNA? Is that part of the research that's going on now to try to find some link other than, well, several people in my family got it, so maybe there's a chance that we got it. Is there some way, I would expect, that we'd find some sort of link in some of the research? Are you looking for that? Absolutely.
Over the last 5 to 7 years, we've really started to understand better what genes do contribute to Alzheimer's disease. And that the biggest benefit to people is not really going to be diagnosing people early. It's probably going to be, those are going to lead us to medicines. Because once we understand what genes are involved, we can understand what drugs might stop those processes. So for example, we've learned recently that inflammation of the brain contributes to Alzheimer's disease. So we're searching for drugs that slow the inflammation in the brain, and maybe this will also slow the progression.
And that's just one of the things you do. You find out that area, if you slow progression, you'll lead to something else that might do it as well. Okay, this is from Debbie. What are the differences in the way Alzheimer's affects different ethnic groups?
Well, there is a higher incidence of Alzheimer's disease in both African American and Hispanic populations, and we're not sure exactly why. It's not tremendously higher, but it is significantly higher. And it could be just general health care is better in other populations. People tend to maintain their cholesterol and their blood pressure and diabetes under control better. But it is an important issue that has not been studied enough, to be honest.
And that's a common instance across almost every medical statistic. If it's African Americans, Hispanics, it's diabetes, it's breast cancer, that sort of thing. Is that part of the reason why you surmise that it may be the way that the various different groups take care of themselves, whether it's a socioeconomic thing or not? You haven't been able to find any medical connections necessarily.
Yeah, it's not well understood to my knowledge exactly what the cause is. It could be a combination of socioeconomic factors along with genetics. There may be some genes that are more prevalent in different populations. But I don't think we really understand the full reason at this point.
How optimistic are you that you're going to make a difference in the world and what you're doing? I mean, this is what you're taking on. When you become associated with MD Anderson, making cancer history, and you're dealing with Alzheimer's, that's a lot of responsibility. How optimistic are you that what you're doing with the consortium is going to make an impact and make a difference?
Well, I'm very optimistic. I think we've been through a very tough stretch for Alzheimer's. It's been 13 years since the last drug was approved. And that's only to help the symptoms. It doesn't slow the disease. But now the science is advancing. We have a great team at Baylor. We have a great team at MIT. We have some new ideas. And I think now we can, for the first time, start testing brand new ideas in patients in the next few years. And some of these are going to work. Some of these are going to start slowing the disease, and we'll turn the corner.
What kinds of things do you have out there now, for example, tests to see if there are early stages of Alzheimer's or dementia? There's something out there that people can do to kind of see if they are dealing with that at this point?
There are some things that are coming. So thanks to a very large government effort across many countries, we've been studying the history of Alzheimer's disease as it develops in a lot of people. And so now there are brain scans that can tell if you're having these plaques in your brain. And there are tests in your spinal fluid where people can look for changes that we know are related to the development of Alzheimer's. These are really research setting tools right now, but you can imagine as technology advances, these will become something that maybe we can screen people with in the future. And the beauty is they will detect the disease before you have a symptom. So over the next 5 years, 7 years, we think this is going to become much more widespread. It's going to make a big difference.
You are aware of how many people are dealing with this, so the numbers are staggering. And people who, 5 years, well, I got an uncle or an aunt or a father or a mother right now who's dealing with this now. Where do I find help along the way between now and then? You're doing research. I know that the care part may not be what you're, but how do people deal with this caregiving excess? It changes lives.
Absolutely. Well, Alzheimer's is a terrible disease, but we have the benefit of a wonderful organization called the Alzheimer's Association. And if you are concerned about Alzheimer's in your family or for yourself, I would go to their website or give them a phone call. They have groups of people who are trained to help people who are confronting this. They have support networks locally. And there's a lot of things you need to know if you have a husband or a wife who's developing Alzheimer's.
And you're doing a panel, I know, coming up on June 1st at the Belmont Senior Village to talk about more of this as well. 6 to 8 o'clock, you're going to have some other people there. What's the main point you're going to want to get across at that setting?
Well, we like to try to educate people because so many people have questions about Alzheimer's. It's not as well understood as diabetes or heart disease. And so we go to these places where people are being affected and try to tell them what we're doing in research, but also answer their questions. How do I cope with this, or where can I turn for resources?
Well, we're going to put this information on our website as well. It's going to be at the Belmont Village Senior Living, West University, 6 to 8 o'clock. It's all free, and that's the good news about all of this. This is going to be on our Newsmakers page on click2houston.com. Dr. Jim Ray, thank you for all you do. A reminder, you can go to click2houston.com for Newsmakers Extra this week, talking with Dr. Ray, answering more of your questions about this terrible disease. Coming up, a woman on a mission to highlight God's role in helping her get through cancer. You'll meet Charlize Hatchett and hear about her God is Bigger Than ministries. That's next when Houston Newsmakers continues.